The Xuran salvage ship Aurora's Reach cut silently through the cold black of uncharted space. Its sensors had picked up a faint signal days ago. An old ship, drifting aimlessly beyond the galactic rim. No known registration, no recent transmissions, just a ghost lost in the void. Captain Lethvar stood on the bridge, eyes sharp as he studied the data. The ship was ancient, unmistakably of Earth origin, and strangely intact. Earth ships hadn't been seen for over a century, since humanity vanished from the stars. The discovery was almost unbelievable, a legend come to life. "Status report," Leth said, voice calm but edged with excitement. "Ship class, exploration cruiser. Power levels, offline. Life signs, none detected," the science officer replied. "Hull damage is severe but localized. No signs of recent activity. It's a tomb out there." The crew murmured uneasily. Earth ships were relics. Relics of a time when humans ruled space with fearless ingenuity. The very idea of boarding one sparked both awe and fear. "Prepare boarding teams," Leth ordered. "We're going in." The corridors of Aurora's Reach buzzed with cautious energy. Engineer Thal checked her gear twice. "Remember, this ship has been floating here for decades. We don't know what's inside." The team suited up and descended into the airlock. The cold hiss of decompression was the last sound before they crossed the threshold into the SS Odysseus, a name that made even the most hardened crew members pause. The ship's interior was dark, the emergency lights flickering weakly as power systems struggled to awaken. Dust floated in the beam of their flashlights, drifting lazily through the silent halls. It smelled of old metal and forgotten memories. "Keep your eyes open," Thal whispered. "This place isn't just abandoned. It feels wrong." Their footsteps echoed in the empty corridors, a steady rhythm in the haunting stillness. Walls were scared, torn metal, gouges deep enough to suggest something violent. The crew scanned for life signs, but only the silence answered back. Then from deep within the ship, a faint sound cut through the quiet. A scream, sharp and sudden, fading before anyone could react. The team froze. "Did you hear that?" A junior officer gasped. "Probably the ship's systems acting up," Leth said, though his voice lacked conviction. They pressed onward, tension growing with each step. The Odysseus was a ghost of the past, but one that seemed to watch them. The scratch marks like warning signs, the eerie silence like a held breath. In the ship's command center, a flickering console suddenly lit up. The crew crowded around it, finding a black box still recording. A last message from the vanished human crew. The playback was fragmented, filled with static, but the words came through clear enough to chill them. "They adapted, not dead. Beware." The message ended abruptly, replaced by an unearthly silence. Leth looked around at his crew. "Whatever happened here," he said quietly, "this ship is not just abandoned. And we are not alone." Outside, the stars continued their silent watch. Somewhere deep within the Odysseus, something stirred. The boarding team moved deeper into the SS Odysseus, their footsteps echoing against the cold metal walls. The flickering emergency lights cast long shadows, twisting the narrow corridors into something alive, something watching. Captain Lethvar's unease grew with every step. Engineer Thal led the way, scanning the environment with her handheld analyzer. "Hull integrity is holding, but the damage is extensive in the rear sections," she said quietly. "Looks like the ship took a heavy beating, maybe from weapons fire." A sudden chill swept through the air, and the crew instinctively glanced over their shoulders. The silence was thick, unnatural. Then, on a nearby bulkhead, something caught the light. Deep gouges scratched into the metal, jagged and desperate. "Claw marks," muttered Reth, the young linguist, stepping closer. "This wasn't caused by any tool or weapon. It's like something tried to tear through the ship's hull from the inside." "Or tried to escape," added Leth grimly. The team pressed onward, scanning for any sign of survivors or threats. Their sensors detected no movement, no life signs, but their comms crackled faintly with static and unexplained interference. Thal frowned. The ship's systems seem partially alive, but something's blocking us from full access. In one of the darkened crew quarters, the team paused. Personal effects lay scattered as if abandoned in a hurry. A cracked photograph of a smiling family, a half-finished meal still sitting on a table. The lingering presence of a vanished life weighed heavily on them. Suddenly, a distant sound broke the silence. A soft, chilling scream. It wasn't a call for help, but something raw and primal, full of fear and pain. The cry echoed down the passageways and vanished just as suddenly as it came. "Everyone stop," ordered Leth, raising his hand. "Stay alert." They tried to trace the origin of the scream, but their instruments found nothing. Reth pressed her ear against the cold wall, straining to catch any faint sound. "I swear I heard it come from over there," she said, pointing toward a bulkhead sealed shut by a thick blast door. The captain nodded. "Then we open it." Using the ship's emergency panel, Thal bypassed the locks, and the blast door groaned open to reveal a long corridor, darker and colder than the rest. The air here was stale, heavy with the scent of decay. As they moved forward, their flashlights flickered and dimmed briefly. Then, to their horror, strange shadows darted just beyond the edges of the light. Quick, flickering movements impossible to pinpoint. "Something's here," whispered a crew member. Suddenly, a figure lunged from the darkness, barely visible, its movements jerky and unnatural. The team fired warning shots that echoed through the metal halls. The figure vanished before anyone could see it clearly, but the claw marks on the walls suddenly made sense. "Whatever this was, it's not alive in the way we understand," said Leth. "This ship is hiding secrets far darker than we imagined." Behind them, the black box continued to emit strange bursts of static and whispers, voices trapped in time, warning of a threat that had evolved beyond death itself. The Odysseus had become a tomb, and somewhere in its shadowed halls, the past was still screaming. The boarding team gathered around the ship's ancient black box, the flickering console throwing ghostly light onto their faces. Engineer Thal worked quickly, her fingers flying over the damaged controls as she tried to piece together the fragmented recordings stored inside. Static hissed and crackled, filling the cramped command room with strange, broken whispers. Then, through the distortion, a voice emerged, urgent, desperate, and haunting. "They adapted, not dead. Beware." The message repeated, each time more garbled, but the words cut through like a warning from beyond the grave. "Adapted?" Reth asked, brow furrowed. What could that mean? Leth shook his head slowly. "Whatever it is, it's clear they weren't just victims. Something changed inside this ship. Something alive." The crew exchanged uneasy looks. The silence inside the Odysseus suddenly felt heavier, thicker, as if the ship itself were listening. Thal rewound the recording and isolated another fragment. This time, the voice was clearer, almost human, but layered with a strange electronic distortion. "Containment breached. Evolutionary process initiated. Do not let it spread." Containment. Leth echoed. What were they containing? Whatever it was, Thal said quietly, it wasn't natural. The ship's logs hint at secret experiments. Neural resonance, synthetic evolution. Words no one fully understood even a century ago. Suddenly, a low hum vibrated through the bulkheads, subtle and unmistakable. The ship's power was slowly returning. "Power levels rising," Thal announced, eyes wide. "Systems are waking up. This ship, it's coming alive." Leth's grip tightened on the console. "Everyone, prepare for anything. We don't know what we're dealing with." The crew spread out cautiously, their comms buzzing with quiet tension. Reth felt eyes on her from the shadows, and once again, soft whispers seemed to drift through the air vents. Then, from deep inside the ship, a scream pierced the stillness. Sharp, distorted, utterly terrifying. The team rushed toward the sound, adrenaline flooding their veins. They found no one, just an empty corridor and the echo of that scream fading into silence. "Is anyone there?" Leth called into the comms. Only static answered. That night, as the team rested in the ship's small rec room, the atmosphere grew heavy. The walls seemed to pulse with unseen life, and shadows twisted in the corners of their vision. Reth couldn't shake the feeling that something watched from the darkness, something ancient, something waiting. She sat by the window, staring out into the void, when suddenly a whisper brushed past her ear. "Help us." Her heart pounded, but when she turned, no one was there. The ship was not empty. It held memories, echoes of fear, pain, and transformation. Humanity's final moments, recorded in the screams and whispers locked inside the Odysseus. And whatever remained inside was not willing to let the past stay buried. The dim glow of the emergency lights cast eerie shadows as the salvage crew pressed on, their nerves taut like wires. The Odysseus was no longer just a silent relic. It was waking, its strange powers stirring deep within its bowels. Engineer Thal led a small team toward the auxiliary power node, hoping to restore enough energy to the ship's systems to gain control. The flickering console screens around them buzzed and crackled, showing erratic readings. The air felt charged, heavy, electric, as if the ship itself was breathing. Suddenly, the comms burst to life with a scream so piercing it made every crew member freeze. It wasn't a normal scream. It was warped, distorted, somewhere between human and something else entirely. The sound echoed through the narrow corridors, vibrating the very metal beneath their feet. Where did that come from? Reth's voice trembled as she scanned the area with her flashlight. Thal's face went pale. "It sounded like one of us." "Check the rear hatch." Leth barked, heart pounding. They rushed back toward the last place they'd seen one of their salvage techs, a young man named Corin. He'd been working on rerouting power cables when the scream erupted. Corin was nowhere to be found. Panic clawed at the edges of the team's discipline. They called his name, their voices bouncing hollowly off the walls. Then, out of the gloom, Corin staggered into view. But something was wrong. His eyes glowed faintly blue, unnatural, and cold. His movements were jerky, his speech broken by strange rhythms. "Corin." Leth stepped forward cautiously. "What happened to you?" Corin's voice was a harsh, metallic rasp. "They, inside, must adapt, survive." Reth reached out but stopped short. Corin recoiled, eyes flicking wildly. "It's the ship," he whispered. "It changes you, rewires your mind. You feel it, don't you?" Before anyone could answer, the ship convulsed, a low mechanical wail rolling through the corridors. Bulkheads shook, and overhead lights flickered wildly. The Odysseus was reacting, angry, alive. "Get clear of the power node," Leth ordered. "This place is unstable." As the crew scrambled back, Corin's glowing eyes followed them, his expression unreadable. Once safe, they tried to communicate with him, but Corin's speech was fragmented, filled with cryptic phrases about evolution, survival, and becoming more than flesh. Thal studied him closely. His neural pathways, they're shifting, like his brain is rewiring itself in real time. The ship must have some technology that integrates with the nervous system. The captain frowned. "So this ship isn't just a wreck. It's a living organism, and it's infecting our crew." That night, Corin sat alone in a containment pod the crew hastily constructed. His glowing eyes tracked every movement, and every so often, he let out another of those distorted screams. Half human, half machine. The rest of the crew tried to sleep, but the air was thick with fear and questions. What had the humans on this ship become? Had they evolved beyond recognition? Or were they trapped in a nightmare that refused to end? The Odysseus was no longer just a ghost ship. It was a warning, and its screams were far from over. The Odysseus groaned like a waking beast as power surged through its ancient veins. Corridors that had been dead for decades hummed with renewed energy, lights flickering to life in hesitant bursts. The salvage crew felt the ship shift beneath their feet, as if it had memories stirring, memories that refused to stay buried. Captain Lethvar stood at the command console, his fingers tracing the ghostly outline of the ship's systems. The controls were archaic but responsive, alive with an intelligence that felt foreign and unsettling. "Systems are coming online faster than expected," Engineer Thal reported, eyes scanning the readouts. "But the security protocols, they've activated." The doors slammed shut throughout the Odysseus, locking the crew inside. Panic flared. Leth's voice cut through the tension. "Everyone, stay calm. We're trapped, but we're not helpless." Holographic displays flickered to life around them, projecting scenes from the ship's final days. Ghostly images showed humans moving silently through battle corridors, faces etched with determination and fear. They fought with precise coordination, using tactics no other species had ever mastered. Wraith watched in awe as the holograms shifted, revealing something more disturbing. A laboratory deep within the ship, filled with strange devices and neural interfaces. Scientists in white coats hovered over humans connected to machines, wires snaking into their skulls. They were experimenting, Wraith whispered, trying to change themselves, evolve. Thal nodded. The logs mentioned neural resonance and synthetic evolution. It sounds like they were trying to fuse their minds with technology to survive, whatever happened. Suddenly, a low rumble shook the ship. Bulkheads vibrated, and somewhere deep inside, machinery whirred to life. Then came the alarms, soft, eerie tones that echoed like distant cries. The Odysseus wasn't just a ship. It was a fortress protecting something vital. Leth called the crew together. "We need to find the source of those experiments. It's the key to understanding what happened here." They made their way to a sealed section of the ship, corridors lined with reinforced doors. The security systems challenged their progress with locked panels and coded access points. Thal worked quickly, bypassing the safeguards while the crew kept watch. When the final door slid open, a chilling sight greeted them. A cryovault lined the chamber, filled with humanoid figures suspended in frost and silence. Their bodies were unmistakably human, but machines were integrated into their spines, wires running beneath translucent skin. One figure stirred, eyes flickering open with a strange glow. She spoke softly, voice calm but resolute. "I am Commander Lin," she said. "We chose evolution over extinction. We became more than flesh. We survived." The crew stared in shock. The Odysseus had carried not just a lost human crew, but the next step in humanity's evolution. The legacy of Earth was not dead. It was waiting, watching, and ready to rise again. Commander Lin's eyes glowed softly in the dim light of the cryovault chamber. She sat upright on the edge of her stasis pod, her movements deliberate, controlled, both human and something more. The salvage crew gathered around, a mix of awe, fear, and disbelief heavy in the air. Lin's voice was calm, but every word carried the weight of a story that had spanned decades, a story of survival, transformation, and defiance. "We were the last of our kind," she began. "The Odysseus was on a mission to explore new worlds when the Rift War broke out. Our crew faced annihilation, but we refused to die." Her gaze shifted to Captain Leth. "We made a choice, to evolve beyond our biology. We fused with machines, rewired our minds to endure what flesh alone could not." Reth stepped forward, curiosity pushing past caution. "What exactly happened? What did you become?" Lin's eyes flickered with something like sadness. "Not what you would call human anymore. We are post-organic, minds enhanced, bodies augmented. We survived the horrors of the war and the unknown threats that followed. But in doing so, we lost much of what made us human." Thal studied Lin closely. "You speak of neural resonance and synthetic evolution. Does that mean the ship's technology infected the crew?" Lin nodded. "Yes, The Odysseus became a crucible. Those who resisted transformation perished or were consumed. The rest adapted, becoming part of the ship's living mind, connected through networks of machine and brain. The crew's unease deepened. The ship wasn't just alive. It was a collective consciousness, a fusion of human will and machine logic. But why remain hidden? Leth asked. Why wait here all this time? Lynn's expression hardened. We guarded a secret, a weapon of knowledge and power forged in desperation. The universe outside is not kind to those who evolve. We waited for the right moment for those who could understand. Her gaze landed on Reth. You are different. You see beyond fear. If you choose, you can join us. Embrace what humanity has become. Reth hesitated, torn between loyalty to her crew and the haunting allure of Lynn's offer. The promise of evolution, of survival beyond death, was tempting. Lynn's voice softened. This is not surrender. It is ascension. Meanwhile, outside the cryovault, the rest of the crew debated. Some urged retreat, fearing the loss of their identity. Others saw hope, a chance to learn from humanity's greatest achievement. The ship hummed with silent energy, waiting. Finally, Reth made her decision. She stepped forward, voice steady. I want to understand. I want to see where this path leads. Lynn smiled faintly, reaching out a hand. Then you will become part of us, part of the legacy. As Reth took the hand, the ship seemed to pulse, a deep resonance vibrating through its core. The Odysseus was no longer just a relic of the past. It was the birthplace of something new, a bridge between what humanity was and what it could become. The line between human and machine blurred. Evolution was no longer a distant dream. It was happening here, in the heart of a forgotten Earth ship. The tension aboard the Odysseus was palpable. The crew stood divided, caught between fear of the unknown and the strange hope offered by Commander Lynn and her post-organic kin. The ship hummed softly around them, a living pulse that echoed the growing conflict within. Captain Lethvar paced the command center, his face grim. We didn't come here to lose ourselves, he said, voice low but firm. We're here to learn what happened, not to become part of it. But Lynn's words haunted him. Evolution is survival, she reminded them. The universe is unforgiving. Change or die. The crew gathered to decide their fate. Some wanted to flee, to return to their alliance and warn others. Others felt drawn to Lynn's vision. To embrace the next stage of existence, to join the new humans who had transcended mortality. Reth, now deeply connected to the ship's systems, stood at the center of the debate. Her mind raced with newfound knowledge and strange sensations, flashes of memories not her own, a strange harmony with the Odysseus's heartbeat. I don't know what the future holds, she said quietly, but I believe there's something beyond fear. We can be more than survivors. We can become something new. Her words rippled through the room. Suddenly, alarms blared. A security breach detected in the lower decks. Shadows shifted in the corridors as the post-organic forms moved silently, their eyes glowing in the dark. We have to decide. Now, Leth said. Do we fight to leave or join them? One by one, the crew made their choices. Some fled to the escape pods, desperate to escape the awakening ship. Others stayed, drawn by curiosity or a desire to transcend. Reth chose to remain. Lynn approached her, extending a hand once more. Welcome to the legacy, she said. Together, we will become the future. As the remaining crew prepared to integrate, the ship pulsed with a surge of energy, a wave of neural resonance that connected minds and machines in a dazzling network of thought. Outside, the escaping pods launched into the void, carrying warnings of a new humanity rising from the ashes. Captain Leth, aboard the last pod, looked back at the distant glow of the Odysseus. His heart was heavy but resolute. Humanity is not dead, he whispered. It has changed, and it will return. The ship, alive and evolving, continued its slow journey through the stars, a beacon of hope and morning. a reminder that the future was not written, but forged. The Odysseus drifted through the endless void, no longer just a ship but a living consciousness, a fusion of mind, machine, and memory. Its corridors no longer echoed with fear or confusion, but thrummed with purpose, the purpose of a new beginning. Inside, Reth felt the profound changes settling into her being. She was no longer fully human, nor simply machine. She was something else, a bridge between worlds, between past and future. The memories of the old Earth crew merged with her own, their hopes and fears now part of her soul. Commander Lin stood beside her, a calm beacon in the swirling storm of transformation. "We carry the best of humanity within us," she said softly. "But we must also embrace the change that ensures survival." Reth nodded. She had seen what clinging to the past could cost. Evolution was not betrayal. It was survival, adaptation, and growth. The crew who had chosen to stay were becoming like Lin and her kin, post-organic humans, minds linked through the ship's neural network, bodies enhanced and strengthened. They shared thoughts, memories, and even emotions, transcending loneliness in a way no flesh alone could. But beyond the ship's hull, a new journey awaited. The Odysseus's sensors had detected signals, distant worlds calling, civilizations unaware of the change that had taken place on a forgotten Earth ship. "Out there," Lin said, "is a universe ripe for rebirth. We will carry humanity's legacy into the stars once more, stronger and wiser." Yet, despite their power and unity, the post-organic crew understood the fragility of their existence. They were pioneers walking a fine line between evolution and losing themselves entirely. Reth found a quiet moment in the observation deck, gazing at the swirling colors of a nebula beyond the viewport. She whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." Back in the command center, the ship's systems hummed in perfect synchrony. The Odysseus was alive, aware and ready. Suddenly, a transmission burst through the static on their comm channels. The escape pods, carrying Captain Leth and others, were sending a message back. "To all who listen," Leth's voice crackled, "we have witnessed the birth of a new humanity. They are not lost. They have evolved. We must prepare. The future will demand our unity and courage." The message spread quickly, stirring hope and fear across the galaxy. On board the Odysseus, Lin and Reth exchanged a determined glance. They were ready to face whatever came next, to be humanity's new guardians, explorers, and champions. The ship surged forward, its living heart beating strong against the void. It was no longer a relic of the past, but a beacon of what humanity could become. The screams had faded, replaced by a chorus of unity and rebirth. The legacy of Earth had begun again.